but our members are very enthusiastic about a Catherine Connolly candidacy and about the potential for a Catherine Connolly presidency. I think it's likely that this election campaign will be a choice between different visions of what sort of Ireland people want to see. So I think Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael will be desperate to retake Áras on Uachtaráin, will be desperate to kind of put the centre, so-called, the extreme neoliberal centre, back in charge of the presidency, so they can get on with their mission in government of worsening the housing crisis while enriching private developers, corporate landlords, getting rid of anything that is left of neutrality, driving further militarisation. They can get on with that project without having someone in the presidency who's going to be putting a very different vision of what sort of Ireland that we should have. And I think Fianna Fáil and or Fine Gael are going to fight hard for retaining that office, but I don't think that working class people, young people, are enthusiastic about establishment politics. I think the other thing that we're likely to see is the emergence of a kind of right populist candidate who attempts to take the real justified anger of ordinary people about the cost of living crisis, about the housing crisis, about the health crisis, and divert that anger away from those at the top who are responsible to vulnerable people, be it refugees, be it LGBTQ people, be it just people of a different colour. And I think in that context, Catherine Connolly and her left and socialist ideas represents a very inspiring alternative. Catherine's record of campaigning for workers' rights, for Palestine, for peace, for women's rights will stand out, and her principled stance on all of those things will, I think, really resonate with ordinary people, and effectively a message of hope and the idea that this country and this world can be a fundamentally different place, and not to kick down but instead to kick upwards. We think in People Before Profit that this has the potential to be a very active, vibrant, insurgent sort of campaign. I could envisage groups all across the country, Dublin South West for Catherine, Dublin Mid West for Catherine, Dublin South Central for Catherine, kind of similar to what we saw in Together for Yes, of people who have never been involved in organised politics together, coming to hear big rallies of Catherine and others speaking, and then joining in mass canvassing activities. I think this has the real potential to energise people, because I think people see that the country is going in a very dangerous place. Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael have driven deep inequality. The right are trying to capitalise on that, and I think Catherine has a real potential to galvanise people and encourage people to get involved, to volunteer for Catherine's campaign when she launches in the coming days. Second thing quickly is just to point out in terms of the Tenants-in-situ scheme, this is one of the few kind of good measures that the government took in relation to housing under massive pressure from the opposition and the scale of the crisis. This stopped people becoming homeless, and now after the election effectively the scheme is being starved, and more people are going to become homeless as a result. This just makes sense. It makes sense when people are faced with homelessness that the state buys it from the landlord gets to exit the market as they want to do, they get market price. The tenant gets secure housing, they don't get thrown into homelessness, and the state is expanding its housing stock, which is what needs to happen to resolve the housing crisis. But instead, central government is now starving councils, with the result that Dublin City Council has run out of money, now Fingal County Council has run out of money, Carlow County Council has run out of money, and we were just looking at the figures for South Dublin County Council there, and they are, if they haven't already run out of money, they're just about to run out of money. There's over 700 applications and expressions of interest for tenant-in-situ. Just over 60 houses have been bought under 1,000 apartments under the tenant-in-situ scheme in South Dublin County Council, and that will be it. The money is effectively gone. So other councils are also going to hit the wall, and the key demand is on the government to fund the scheme properly. The final point, very briefly, is we heard about a new era of restraint, I think is the words that are being used by our Finance Minister and Public Expenditure Minister. Effectively, this is repackaged austerity. So just restraint is the new word for austerity. And it's going to feel like very severe and harsh austerity if the government persists in its position of not assisting with the cost of living crisis. If it wasn't for the one-off measures over the past couple of years, these would have been very, very clearly regressive budgets. The cost of living crisis hasn't gone away, prices haven't gone down, the rate of increase has slightly slowed down, but they continue to rise. Workers are really struggling, and now you have a government which made lots of one-off measures in the two budgets in the run-up to the election. Now you have a government saying, oh no, due to the international scenario, we're not going to be able to have the money and we're not going to do these things, and effectively a message of restraint. They're sitting on a huge pot of money. They were sitting last year on a record budget surplus. There will be a budget surplus for next year, and yet ordinary people are suffering. So we'll be calling for a debate in the Dáil this week on what their proposal is for a new era of restraint or austerity, and instead say, whenever you have such a surplus, that ordinary people shouldn't be suffering in the way that they are, in the way that we saw in the Barnardo survey last week.
Okay, I'll keep this quick because I think we're all going to be drowned. But just to state on the presidential election, Solidarity hasn't actually taken a position on this yet. We haven't discussed it, but we will come back. So I just wanted to clarify that. We'll consult with our members and come back on that. I just want to mention this is the last week of the Dáil, and this government has had a whole Dáil session to show its mettle on Palestine. It recognised the Palestinian state. It supports the ICJ, it says, but it has in effect taken no real action whatsoever. The diluted Occupied Territories Bill won't even be obviously passed. But also we're seeing in this visa rejection real heartlessness and cowardliness and fake solidarity with Palestine. The Minister for Justice has to explain why, children aren't allowed to come here to play football. It has to explain why horrifically sick children who we promised to care for in our health service have been stalled and put back until the autumn. Some of them have died. What is that about? And it seems to me there's a fear that maybe some of these people would actually stay. Like that it's just, what heartlessness. Why hasn't there been a proper refugee programme anyway for people who are the victims of this genocide? I think the other issue I want to mention is the cost of living very quickly. We are paying 30% more for electricity in Ireland than the rest of Europe. There is going to be really severe consequences for people. We already have 400,000 in electricity arrears. So if the government is refusing to have these one-off supports that it had last year, there will be real poverty, no question about it. Yet we read the data centres, they're not getting an increase, they're getting a decrease in their tariffs. How is that justifiable that ordinary householders will see their bills rocket and the data centres will see theirs decreased, who are obviously consuming a huge amount of electricity and water as well? And lastly, I want to mention the redress scheme for school sexual and physical abuse. It's very welcome, and obviously we will debate what's involved with this commission. But we have to reiterate that the religious orders have ample money to pay for this and to pay for the redress, the damage that they caused to so many children, to so many young people. Just to give you a few figures. So the Spirit and Order, for example, who are in the spotlight right now, they have assets totalling 157 million. Probably an underestimate because they're able to, be very creative with their land holding portfolio. The Brothers of Charity, net assets of 33.9 million. The Jesuits, 43 million. St John of God, 54 million, according to their 2023 accounts. Those five orders formed the majority of the, protagonists, if you like, in this. And they have to be made pay. There's been no attempt really to do that in the past by Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. It has to happen now. Their assets, their land, their accounts. A Criminal Assets Bureau was able to seize assets from criminals. It should do the same with the religious orders that are found to have done this abuse.
There's just on the presidency, just to clarify, obviously no decision from Solidarity yet. As you said, when is that decision likely to be made? And is there any reason why you wouldn't support Catherine?
No, it's just, obviously Catherine announced there, I think it was last Friday, So we just haven't met. We're going to consult with members about it now and talk to Catherine and then come to a decision. Look, if we've one TD, we've a few councillors, it just hasn't really been. The presidency hasn't been our top priority. We've been campaigning Trans Pride. Our members played a key role in organising 10,000 people on the streets on Saturday. A very significant march given how trans people are under attack, globally and here in Ireland. So that's where our attention has been focused.
On the presidency, Paul, have you any thoughts on when polling day should be, and would September be too quick?
I don't really have a lot of thoughts on it. I was expecting a kind of November election. I think just given where we're at, that the Dáil is about to go on its summer recess, and things are going to quieten down over the summer. It's difficult to see a September polling date really working. Maybe right at the end of September. I think, the way I envisage it, and this is my personal opinion, not Catherine's opinion, is that effectively, over August you're preparing, doing media interviews, things like that, and then I would hope then that Catherine can really hit the ground running in September with rallies in every constituency across the country, meeting huge numbers of people, getting campaign teams up and going. I think from the kind of a selfish view of what would suit Catherine best, I think having a bit more time to get that campaign going. I suspect that the kind of ground game campaigning of Catherine is going to be substantially greater than that of Mairead McGuinness. So the more time we have to talk to lots of people, I think the better. But I think we can only respond with what we get.
Do you think a Party C supporter will want to have an input into Catherine's campaign platform and messaging?
I think we'll have an input in the sense of, I think Catherine's very open to hear ideas. We have already members volunteering to assist with different aspects of Catherine's campaign. We need to sit down and kind of work all that out to see, how best can we use our resources to assist the campaign, either at a local level, which I think is where we kind of mostly be focused, but also at a central level, in terms of just assisting all the things that need to happen in a massive national campaign. These are the biggest elections that we have. But I think, ultimately Catherine is running for president. That's who people should be, her who's on the ballot paper. So I think, she will take our advice as she wishes to see it. But obviously the reason we're endorsing her is that we think that politically she's quite close to us. So we think she's likely to agree with most of the things that we think.
Will you be supporting Catherine Connolly in the run for presidency?
No, I just made it clear there that we actually haven't taken a position in solidarity yet, just purely because it was announced on Friday formally by Catherine, and we've got to consult with our members.
Do you think
take a decision. As I said, we have to take a decision and discuss it with our members.
Okay.
Yeah. We're very open to a left candidate, obviously. Yeah.